In the summer of 1894, a Jewish journalist from Vienna sat in a Parisian courtroom witnessing an event that would change the course of Middle Eastern history forever. Theodor Herzl watched as Captain Alfred Dreyfus, wrongly accused of treason, was publicly stripped of his military rank while crowds outside chanted, "Death to the Jews." This moment of anti-Semitic fury in the heart of supposedly enlightened Europe sparked a realization in Herzl that would birth one of the most consequential political movements of the modern era, Zionism. The Age of Enlightenment led to an 18th and 19th century Jewish Enlightenment movement called the Haskalah, with France becoming the first country in Europe to grant Jews legal equality in 1791, following the French Revolution, followed by Britain in 1856 and Germany in 1871. For the first time in centuries, Jewish communities found themselves emerging from the cons of ghettos into the broader fabric of European society. Germans, Italians, Greeks, and dozens of other ethnic groups were successfully establishing nation-states based on shared language, culture, and territory. The rise of racial anti-Semitism, distinct from religious persecution, suggested that no matter how thoroughly Jews integrated, they would always be viewed as foreign elements. This realization was slowly building toward a breaking point when Herzl witnessed the Dreyfus Affair. Jews scattered across dozens of countries and speaking multiple languages seemed to lack the basic prerequisites for nationhood. Or did they? And journalism, fully embracing the assimilated lifestyle that many European Jews of his generation adopted. He wrote German plays, socialized in Viennese coffee houses, and seemed destined for a conventional bourgeois existence. The Dreyfus Affair shattered this comfortable worldview. For nearly 2 millennia, Jewish prayers had ended with "next year in Jerusalem." Now Herzl proposed to transform this spiritual longing into political reality. But the story of Zionism doesn't begin with Herzl's revelation in France. The land they sought was controlled by the Ottoman Empire, inhabited by Arab populations, and seemed impossibly distant from the urban Jewish communities of Europe. Pogroms in Eastern Europe, the rise of political anti-Semitism in France and Germany, and legal restrictions across the continent provided constant reminders of Jewish vulnerability. Jewish immigrants, many fleeing persecution in Eastern Europe, began arriving in Palestine in significant numbers. Many early settlers died or returned to Europe in despair. Yet those who remained began to transform both the land and themselves. Intellectual Jews from the cities of Europe became farmers and laborers. Hebrew, previously confined to religious scholarship, became the language of daily life. A new Jewish identity was being forged. These early pioneers, known as Shalotzim, established agricultural settlements, revived Hebrew as a spoken language, and began creating the institutions of a future state. Each new outbreak of persecution brought fresh recruits to the Zionist cause. Moreover, the movement faced opposition from within Jewish communities themselves. Many religious Jews considered the establishment of a Jewish state before the coming of the Messiah to be blasphemous while assimilated. Jews feared that Zionism would undermine their hard-won acceptance in European society. Here was France, the birthplace of human rights and liberty, equality and fraternity, yet its streets rang with calls for Jewish blood. Jewish communities across Europe and eventually the world could be mobilized in support of the cause. This international character would become one of Zionism's greatest strengths. The pamphlet's opening lines were stark and uncompromising. The Jewish question exists wherever Jews exist. European nationalism provided a framework for understanding Jewish distinctiveness not as a problem to be solved through assimilation, but as the foundation for a legitimate national claim. Socialist ideologies offered models for creating new egalitarian societies from scratch. These intellectual resources allowed Zionist thinkers to develop sophisticated arguments for Jewish statehood that resonated with contemporary European political thought. Herzl argued that anti-Semitism was not a temporary aberration, but a permanent feature of Jewish life in diaspora. The solution he proposed was revolutionary. Jews needed their own state. If this could happen in France, Herzl reasoned it could happen anywhere. This gathering brought together 197 delegates from across Europe and beyond, united by a shared vision of Jewish national renewal. The Congress established the movement's official goal to secure a publicly recognized, legally secured homeland for the Jewish people in Palestine. Zionism's emergence in the late 19th century was among assimilated Central European Jews who, despite their formal emancipation, still felt excluded from high society. They had the rights of citizens but often remained outsiders in their own countries. Its roots stretched deep into centuries of Jewish experience, persecution, and an unbroken connection to an ancient homeland. To understand how this movement shaped not only the Middle East but also global politics, we must journey back to the turbulent 19th century when European nationalism was reshaping the world. The 19th century was a time of dramatic transformation across Europe. Yet this newfound freedom came with unexpected complications. As Jews integrated into European society, they faced a paradox that would define the next century of their history. This contradiction became particularly acute as European nationalism surged throughout the 1800s. The answer to this question would prove explosive. While many Jews sought complete assimilation into their host societies, others began to question whether true acceptance was possible. Theodor Herzl was an unlikely revolutionary. Born into a comfortable middle-class family in Budapest, he had pursued law. What Herzl witnessed in Paris wasn't just the persecution of one innocent man, but a glimpse into the fundamental fragility of Jewish existence in Europe. From this traumatic realization emerged Herzl's masterwork Der Judenstaat, or the Jewish State, published in 1896. In 1897, Herzl organized the first Zionist Congress, which met in Basel, Switzerland, and formed the World Zionist Organization, becoming its first president. The choice of Palestine wasn't arbitrary. While Herzl had initially considered other locations including Uganda and Argentina, the historical and religious connection to the ancient land of Israel proved irresistible. The early Zionist movement faced staggering challenges. Yet Zionism possessed certain advantages that proved decisive. Unlike other nationalist movements of the era, it wasn't confined to a single country or region. The movement also benefited from the intellectual currents of its time. Tragically, the movement's urgency was reinforced by the very anti-Semitism it sought to escape. The transformation of Zionism from an intellectual movement to a practical enterprise began in the early 20th century. This practical Zionism faced enormous obstacles. The climate was harsh, disease was common, and relations with Arab neighbors were often tense. The outbreak of World War I created both opportunities and dangers for the Zionist project. The war's end brought the collapse of the Ottoman Empire and the British Mandate over Palestine. The Balfour Declaration of 1917, in which Britain expressed support for the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people, seemed to offer international recognition for Zionist aspirations. Yet the Mandate period also revealed the fundamental tensions that would plague the region for generations. British promises to Jews were matched by promises to Arabs. Two peoples claimed the same land and both had legitimate historical grievances. The seeds of future conflict were being sown even as the Zionist dream seemed closer to realization. The rise of Nazi Germany transformed Zionism from an idealistic movement into a desperate necessity. The Holocaust's unprecedented destruction of European Jewry provided both the moral imperative and the demographic foundation for Jewish statehood. Survivors of the camps with nowhere else to go turned to Palestine as their only refuge. The Zionist leadership, led by figures like David Ben-Gurion, recognized that history had created a unique window of opportunity. International guilt over the Holocaust, British exhaustion after World War II, and Cold War dynamics all aligned to make Jewish statehood possible. On May 14, 1948, Ben-Gurion read Israel's Declaration of Independence, bringing the Zionist dream to fruition. The new state immediately faced existential challenges. Arab armies invaded the day after independence was declared, beginning a conflict that would define the region for decades. Yet Israel survived, and in surviving proved that Herzl's vision was more than utopian fantasy. Israel's establishment marked the beginning, not the end, of Zionism's global influence. The movement's focus shifted from creating a Jewish state to ensuring its survival and prosperity. This new phase required unprecedented diplomatic sophistication, particularly in cultivating relationships with major powers. The United States emerged as Israel's most crucial ally, but this relationship wasn't automatic. American support had to be carefully constructed through a combination of shared values, strategic interests, and effective advocacy. In March 1954, the American Zionist Committee for Public Affairs was formed, which would be renamed AIPAC in 1959, launching the modern Israel Lobby. This organization, along with numerous others, worked to ensure that American foreign policy remained supportive of Israeli interests. The success of this effort was remarkable. Despite significant differences in geography, culture, and immediate strategic concerns, the United States became Israel's closest ally. Military aid, diplomatic support, and economic cooperation created bonds that have endured through multiple changes of government in both countries. This relationship wasn't built solely on Jewish advocacy, however. Christian Zionism, based on biblical interpretations of Jewish restoration to the Holy Land, provided crucial support from evangelical communities. Strategic considerations during the Cold War, when Israel served as a reliable democratic ally in a volatile region, also played a major role. Today, Zionism remains one of the most controversial political movements in the world. Its supporters view it as a liberation movement that enabled Jewish survival after millennia of persecution. Its critics see it as a form of colonialism that has displaced Palestinian populations and created ongoing regional instability. Both perspectives contain elements of truth. Zionism undeniably provided Jews with political power and territorial sanctuary when they were desperately needed. The Holocaust's aftermath vindicated Herzl's argument that Jewish safety ultimately required Jewish sovereignty. Yet the movement's success also created new forms of suffering, particularly for Palestinian Arabs who lost homes and communities in the process of Israeli state-building. Understanding Zionism requires grappling with this complexity. It was simultaneously a national liberation movement and a project that displaced another people. It was both a response to persecution and a force that created new forms of conflict. It was democratic in its internal governance, yet established on territory claimed by others. The movement's evolution from Herzl's original vision also raises important questions. Early Zionists like Herzl imagined a normal nation-state that would end Jewish distinctiveness through the achievement of normalcy. Instead, Israel has become a unique entity, simultaneously Middle Eastern and European, democratic and militarized, ancient and modern. The Zionist movement's century-long journey from Herzl's pamphlet to modern Israel offers profound lessons about nationalism, identity, and political transformation. It demonstrates how ideas can reshape reality when combined with organization, determination, and historical opportunity. It also reveals the unintended consequences that can flow from even the most idealistic visions. For students of history, Zionism illustrates the power of narrative in political mobilization. The movement succeeded not merely through military conquest or diplomatic maneuvering, but by creating compelling stories about Jewish history, identity, and destiny. These narratives continue to shape Middle Eastern politics today. The movement also highlights the interconnectedness of global politics in the modern era. A Jewish journalist's experience in Paris ultimately contributed to conflicts in the Middle East and influenced American foreign policy. Local events can have global consequences, and global movements can reshape local realities. Perhaps most importantly, Zionism demonstrates both the possibilities and perils of nationalist ideology in the modern world. It shows how oppressed peoples can achieve self-determination through political organization and international advocacy. Yet it also reveals how one group's liberation can become another's displacement, and how historical grievances can perpetuate cycles of conflict across generations. As the Middle East continues to grapple with the consequences of competing nationalisms, understanding Zionism's origins and evolution remains crucial for anyone seeking to comprehend one of the world's most enduring conflicts. The movement that began with Herzl's shock at Parisian anti-Semitism continues to shape global politics more than a century later, testament to the enduring power of ideas to change the world. The story of Zionism reminds us that history is shaped not only by economic forces and military conflicts, but by the power of human conviction to transform dreams into reality. Whether one views this transformation as liberation or catastrophe often depends on which side of history one stands. What cannot be disputed is that a small group of European intellectuals succeeded in creating one of the most consequential political movements of the modern age, forever altering the map of the Middle East and the trajectory of global politics.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more engaging historical content.